My daughter asked me to declare my son legally dead while he was still leaving voicemails on my telephone. She placed the affidavit beside my plate during my 72nd birthday dinner. The candles were still burning on the cake. My grandson, Noah, was seated at the far end of the table, staring at the document as though he already knew what it contained. My daughter, Laura, had prepared everything. The dinner. The witnesses. The lawyer sitting beside her. Even the silver pen resting across the signature line. The document said my son Owen had not been seen or heard from in more than 7 years. It said every reasonable attempt to locate him had failed. It said I believed he was dead. Only one of those statements was almost true. I had not seen Owen in 11 years. But 3 weeks earlier, a man with my son's voice had left a message on my home telephone. "Dad, please don't sign anything Laura gives you." The message disappeared before I could listen to it a second time. Laura said I had imagined it. She reminded me that I had recently confused 2 appointments and misplaced my wallet inside the freezer. She said grief and age could make familiar voices appear where they did not exist. Then she scheduled a medical evaluation for me. 2 days later, the affidavit appeared. "Dad," Laura said, "this is not about punishing Owen. It is about protecting what remains of the family." What remained was Reed Orchards. 240 acres of apple trees, storage barns, packing sheds, and the white farmhouse my wife and I had purchased when our children were young. A developer had offered $18 million for the land. Owen still owned 25%. If he was declared dead, his share would pass to Noah. Noah was 17. Laura controlled his finances until he turned 18. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed, the declaration does not establish criminal responsibility or blame. It only permits the court to settle a long-abandoned ownership interest." "Abandoned by whom?" Laura's face tightened. "Dad. Owen stole from the company and disappeared. You know that." I didn't know what everyone said happened. 11 years earlier, $186,000 vanished from the Orchard's expansion account. Owen's electronic credentials approved the transfer. His truck was found at the airport. He missed his wife's funeral 4 months later. He never returned for his son. For more than a decade, I had called him a thief, a coward, and a deadbeat father. The affidavit only asked me to add one more word. Dead. Laura pushed the pen toward me. "The buyer's deadline is Friday. If we lose this offer, the bank may force a sale for half as much. Everything Mom built could disappear." She had chosen the correct name. My wife, Evelyn, had been dead for 3 years. Whenever Laura wanted me to stop asking questions, she explained what Evelyn would have wanted. I picked up the pen. Across the table, Noah stood. His chair scraped against the wooden floor. "Grandpa, don't." Laura turned toward him. "This is an adult matter. It is about my father. It is about property. His property." Noah reached into his jacket and removed an old digital recorder. The plastic casing was cracked. A piece of black tape held the battery compartment closed. Laura went pale. I noticed. Noah noticed too. He pressed play. Static filled the dining room. Then I heard Laura's voice. "Stop calling this house. He believes you stole the money. Let him keep believing it." A man answered. His voice was older and rougher than I remembered. "But it belonged to my son. I have proof now. I'm coming home." Laura's voice sharpened. "If you come back before the sale, I will make sure Noah hears exactly why you really left." The recording ended. No one moved. The candles continued burning behind the affidavit. I looked at Laura. "What did you delete from my telephone?" She did not answer. The lawyer began collecting his papers. Noah remained standing. Then Laura said the sentence that changed the entire night. "Owen is alive." My hands began shaking. "Where is he?" "I don't know. You spoke to him. He called. When?
Several times.
You told me I imagined his voice.
I was trying to protect you.
That was the first lie Laura admitted. It was not the largest. My name is Benjamin Reed. I was 72 years old when my daughter asked me to bury my living son on paper. Until that birthday dinner, I believed our family had been destroyed by Owen's betrayal. By the end of the week, I understood that betrayal had happened inside our home long before he disappeared. Reed Orchards began with 40 acres and a bad loan. My father grew corn on the land until a drought ruined 2 harvests and convinced him that trees were less likely to disappoint him quickly. He planted apples. Most of them died. He planted again. By the time Evelyn and I took over, the orchard had 80 profitable acres and 1 packing shed that leaned east in high wind. We expanded slowly. I managed the fields and equipment. Evelyn managed the accounts, contracts, and people. I knew when soil needed drainage. Evelyn knew when a worker needed an advance without being embarrassed by the request. Together, we built something neither of us could have built alone. Laura was our first child. She arrived serious. As a baby, she stared at strangers as though checking their references. At 8, she organized the pantry and accused Evelyn of storing flour without a system. At 13, she created a color-coded harvest schedule that was more efficient than mine. Owen came 4 years later. He climbed before he walked, spoke before anyone wanted him to, and broke 3 windows before his 7th birthday. Laura followed rules because they produced order. Owen questioned rules because he wanted to know who benefited from them. I understood Laura. She reminded me of Evelyn. Owen reminded me of every worker I had once fired and later discovered had been right about something. When the children were teenagers, I praised Laura for responsibility and criticized Owen for potential. Potential was the word adults used when they wanted a young person to feel guilty for not becoming easier. Owen loved the orchard, but not as a farm. He saw possibilities. Farm tours. Cider production. Direct shipping. Organic certification. He wanted customers to know the people growing their food. I wanted him to repair irrigation pumps before discussing storytelling. We argued often. Laura usually stood beside me. Evelyn usually stood between us. Laura studied business administration and returned to manage operations. Owen studied agricultural science and came home with ideas that required money we did not have. For several years, the tension remained useful. Laura controlled costs. Owen pushed us to grow. Then Owen married Natalie. Natalie was a photographer from Chicago who had visited the orchard for a magazine assignment. She wore boots that were never appropriate for mud and asked workers questions Laura considered intrusive. Evelyn loved her. Laura did not. Noah was born 2 years later. He had Natalie's quietness and Owen's habit of noticing things adults preferred to leave unnoticed. When he was 5, he asked why Aunt Laura smiled during meetings but not afterward. Evelyn told him some smiles belonged to work. The orchard expanded rapidly during those years. Owen secured a contract with a regional grocery chain. Laura negotiated financing for a new cold storage facility. We created an expansion account containing $250,000. The money would cover equipment deposits and construction costs. Evelyn still controlled the final authorizations. But she had begun experiencing numbness in her right hand and occasional confusion. Doctors first blamed stress. Months later, they discovered a small brain tumor. The tumor was benign. The surgery was successful. But during the months before diagnosis, Evelyn made mistakes. She paid invoices twice. Misfiled contracts. Forgot conversations. Laura quietly corrected the errors. Owen argued that we needed an independent accountant. Laura said bringing in an outsider would humiliate their mother. I agreed with Laura. That was how she became the only person who fully understood the accounts. The missing money disappeared in 3 transfers. Each transfer was sent to a company called Northline Agricultural Consulting. Owen's credentials approved the payments. The invoices described soil analysis, distribution research, and equipment sourcing. Laura discovered the transfers during Evelyn's recovery. She brought the statements to me inside a red folder. Owen was away at a supplier conference. "This company does not exist," Laura said. "Owen created a vendor and paid himself. Did you ask him?" "I called. He did not answer." That evening, Owen's truck was found at the airport. His telephone went directly to voicemail. His passport was missing. The next morning, the bank confirmed his credentials had authorized all 3 transfers. I did not wait for him to explain. I called the police. Then I changed the locks at the Orchard office. When Owen called 2 days later, Laura answered. She told me he admitted taking the money and said he needed time. I asked to hear the message. She said he had called the office line and the system had not recorded it. I believed her. Owen never called me directly. At least, that was what I believed. 3 months later, Natalie was diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia. She had already separated from Owen before he disappeared. She and Noah were living in Chicago with her sister. Owen did not come to the hospital. He did not come to the funeral. Laura drove to Chicago and brought 7-year-old Noah home. She became his legal guardian. Evelyn and I helped raise him, but Laura made the decisions. She chose his school, doctors, activities, and eventually the story he was told about his father. "Owen stole from the family and abandoned you," she said. I repeated it. Evelyn repeated it too, although she sometimes asked whether anyone had truly searched for him. Laura always had an answer. Private investigators. Police reports. International searches. Return mail. Every path had supposedly ended. What I did not know was that Laura controlled every path. After the birthday dinner, Noah refused to leave with Laura. She told him he was coming home. He said he would stay with me. Laura reminded him she was his guardian. Noah looked at the lawyer. I turn 18 in 26 days. If she wants to drag me out, she can explain to the judge why she hid calls from my father. The lawyer closed his case. "Laura, we should leave." "You knew?" I asked him. "I was retained for the property declaration." "That is not an answer. It is the only one I am giving without reviewing my obligations." Laura stood. She looked at Noah. "You have no idea what your father is. Then let him tell me. You think this recording proves he is innocent? It proves you lied." Laura turned toward me. "Do not let one voicemail erase 11 years. You erase the voicemail. Because he was manipulating you. He warned me not to sign your document." "Exactly." The confidence in her answer frightened me. Laura had reached the point where evidence against her had become evidence that everyone else was dangerous. She left with the lawyer. The birthday cake remained untouched. Noah sat across from me holding the recorder. "Where did you get that?" "Her office." "You broke into her office?" "I used the key she keeps above the kitchen cabinet." "That is still entering without permission. She has been opening my mail for 11 years. The anger in his voice belonged to someone who had recently discovered a childhood was not what he had been told. I understood that feeling. I was discovering it at 72. Noah placed several envelopes on the table. They were addressed to him. Different return addresses. Different cities. The same handwriting. "I found these in a locked drawer." "Did you open them?" "They were already opened." "By Laura?" "I assume so." The first letter was dated 9 years earlier. Owen wrote that he had learned Natalie was ill and wanted to contact Noah. He said Laura had threatened to report him for theft if he returned. He claimed he had not taken the expansion money. The second letter contained a bank receipt for $20,000 sent to a trust account for Noah. The third contained another receipt. Then another. Owen had sent money almost every year. The amounts varied. $5,000. $12,000. $25,000. The total exceeded $130,000. I had never seen the money. Noah had never heard about it. "Where's the trust account?" I asked. "I don't know." "Did you ask Laura?" "She said the letters were fake." "When?" "Last week." I stared at him. "You knew before the dinner?" "I found the first envelope last month." I confronted her. She said Owen was trying to interfere with the sale. Then she took my telephone for 2 days. "Why didn't you tell me?" Noah looked toward the affidavit. "Because she said you were having memory problems. She said upsetting you could cause a stroke." Laura had told each of us the other was too fragile for the truth. That was how she kept us quiet without needing locked doors. The next morning, I called my doctor. I requested the results of the cognitive evaluation Laura had scheduled. The doctor said I had normal age-related forgetfulness and no indication of dementia. He sounded confused when I asked whether Laura had been told something different. "Your daughter attended the follow-up. I explained the results to both of you. She told me you were concerned. I recommended using a calendar and reviewing medications. That was all." Laura had transformed a calendar recommendation into evidence that I should doubt my own ears. I called the bank handling Noah's trust. They would not speak with me because Laura was the authorized guardian. Noah called next. Because he was still 17, they provided only limited information. The account existed. The balance was $9,400. More than $100,000 had entered. Nearly all of it had left. Noah sat beside me in the Orchard office. His face became blank as the bank representative explained that records would require a formal request. When the call ended, he asked, "Did Aunt Laura steal it?" "I don't know. That is what adults say when the answer is yes, but they are afraid of being wrong. Sometimes it is what we say because accusation should come after evidence." Noah looked at me. "Did you wait for evidence before accusing my dad?" The question struck harder than anger. "No. I did not." He turned toward the window. Outside, rows of bare winter trees extended across the hills. For most of my life, those rows had represented order. That morning, they looked like thousands of witnesses standing too far away to help. We needed an attorney. Not the Orchard's attorney. Not Laura's. I called Miriam Cole, a woman who had represented several local farmers in partnership disputes. She was 61, direct, and unimpressed by family reputation. She listened without interrupting. Then she asked, "Who controls the Orchard accounts?" "Laura." "Who controls the proposed sale?" "Laura negotiates it." "Who arranged your cognitive evaluation?" "Laura." "Who controls Noah's trust?" "Laura." Miriam removed her glasses. "You do not have 4 separate problems. You have one person controlling 4 sources of information." She filed an emergency request preventing any declaration of death or property transfer until Owen's status and the trust account were investigated. She also requested complete Orchard records. Laura responded within 2 hours. She called me 14 times. Then she sent an email accusing Noah of stealing private documents and me of being manipulated by a troubled teenager. She copied the developer and the Orchard lender. By evening, the buyer postponed the sale. The bank requested updated financial statements. Laura told employees that Noah and I had endangered their jobs. That was her first major counterattack. She surrounded her choices with innocent workers and asked whether we were willing to harm them. I had seen that method before. I had simply called it responsibility when Laura used it. 3 days later, Owen called Miriam's office. He would not give his location. He agreed to a video meeting. Noah wanted to attend. Miriam said the choice belonged to Owen and Noah together. Both agreed. We met in Miriam's conference room. A laptop sat at the end of the table. At 10 o'clock, Owen's face appeared. My son had aged. His hair was mostly gray. A scar crossed his left eyebrow. The energetic young man I remembered had become cautious, as though every word might be used to locate him. Noah stopped breathing for a moment. Owen looked at him. Neither spoke. Finally, Owen said, "You look like your mother." Noah's face hardened. "You missed her funeral." Owen closed his eyes. "Yes." "Why?" "I was afraid." "Of Aunt Laura?" "Of the police." The admission changed the room. Owen was alive. That did not make him innocent of everything. He explained that Northline Agricultural Consulting had been real. It was a small company created by his college friend, Marcus Lane. Owen hired Marcus to research organic certification and direct distribution. The first transfer was legitimate. The second and third were not. Owen had approved blank payment batches using his credentials because Laura told him Evelyn's surgery had created a backlog. He signed without reviewing every vendor. Later, Laura used the authorization to send additional money to Northline. Marcus returned most of it to a private account controlled by Laura. Owen discovered the arrangement after the bank contacted him about the unusual payments. He confronted Laura. She said Mom had made mistakes that could destroy the loan application. She said the money was being moved temporarily to hide the accounting problems. She promised it would be returned. "Did you agree?" Miriam asked. "Not at first." That answer mattered. Owen admitted he eventually agreed to remain silent. He feared the bank would accuse Evelyn of fraud or declare the expansion loan in default. Laura said she could repair everything if he gave her time. Then Natalie left him. She had discovered he was hiding financial information and believed he was involved. Owen began drinking. He missed meetings and threatened to expose Laura during arguments. The night before he disappeared, Laura told him she had created records making him responsible for all 3 transfers. She said if he went to the police, she would produce emails showing he planned the vendor arrangement. Some of those emails were real. Others were drafts he claimed she altered. "Why did you run?" Noah asked. "Because I was guilty enough to be afraid and innocent enough to feel trapped." That sounds convenient. It is not supposed to sound good. Owen said he flew to Canada, then moved between agricultural jobs under his middle name. When Natalie became ill, he wanted to return. Laura warned that the police investigation remained open. She promised to take care of Noah if Owen stayed away. He believed appearing during Natalie's illness would lead to his arrest and make everything worse. So he sent money. He wrote letters. He told himself distance was temporary. Temporary decisions have a way of becoming identities. Noah stared at the screen. "You could have called me." "I did." Aunt Laura answered twice. Then the number changed. "You could have come." "Yes." "You chose not to." "Yes." Owen did not improve the answer. "For the first time that day, I recognized my son." Then I asked the question I had carried for 11 years. "Did you steal the money?" Owen looked directly into the camera. "I helped create the situation that allowed it to disappear. I concealed the first transfer arrangement. I signed approvals I did not review. I ran when I should have told the truth. But I did not take the money." It was not the clean innocence I wanted. It sounded like the truth because it refused to make him blameless. Miriam asked whether he had evidence. Owen held up a storage receipt. Before leaving, he had copied account files, emails, and vendor records onto 2 drives. One was stored in a bank deposit box under Marcus Lane's name. Marcus had died 4 years earlier. The second was hidden inside an old orchard irrigation controller. "Which controller?" I asked. "The broken one in Pump House 3. You threw that out," Laura had told me years earlier. "No. She moved it into the equipment barn." Owen had called because Laura recently contacted him. She said the orchard was being sold and offered him $200,000 if he signed away his ownership and remained absent. He refused. Then she began trying to have him declared dead. "What did you mean when you told her you had proof now?" Miriam asked. "I found Marcus's widow. She discovered the deposit box key among his belongings. She is willing to release the records." Miriam arranged for both evidence sources to be secured. Owen agreed to return if prosecutors offered a formal process for resolving his role in the original concealment. He did not ask for immunity. He asked not to be arrested before presenting the records. Noah said nothing when the meeting ended. Owen asked whether they could speak privately. Noah refused. "I spent my whole life having adults decide which conversations I could handle. If we speak, Grandpa stays." Owen accepted. He told Noah about Natalie. Not only her illness. The way she sang badly while editing photographs. The way she hated apples despite marrying into an orchard family. The way she placed Noah's crib beside a window because she believed babies deserve sunlight before opinions. Noah listened. He asked no questions. When Owen finished, Noah said, "You do not get to make me feel close to you by telling stories about Mom. I understand." "No, you don't. But you can keep trying." It was not forgiveness. It was a door left unlocked without being opened. Pump House 3 stood near the northern boundary of the orchard. Laura had ordered that section closed because of electrical damage. Miriam hired an independent locksmith and arranged for a sheriff's deputy to accompany us. The equipment barn smelled of oil, dust, and old wood. Rows of broken machinery lined the walls. The irrigation controller sat beneath a tarp exactly where Owen described. I recognized the dent in its metal casing. I had created it years earlier by dropping a wrench during an argument with Owen. He told me anger was not a repair method. I told him neither was commentary. The deputy opened the casing. Inside, behind a false metal plate, was a sealed plastic bag containing a flash drive and handwritten notes. Noah looked at me. For the first time since the birthday dinner, hope appeared on his face. Then a truck entered the barnyard. Laura stepped out. She was not alone. 2 orchard supervisors and 6 employees followed her. "What are you doing?" she demanded. Miriam showed her the court order. Laura did not read it. She looked at the plastic bag. Her face changed. Only for a second. Then she turned toward the employees. "My father is allowing a runaway thief to sabotage the sale. If this deal collapses, there may be no payroll next month." Workers began murmuring. Some had been with us for decades. They looked at me with fear and disappointment. Laura had created an audience because she knew I was weakest when other families depended on my decision. "Dad," she said, softer now, "you do not understand the finances. The orchard is failing. This sale saves pensions, jobs, and homes. Owen's evidence has nothing to do with today. It has everything to do with declaring him dead. He is legally exposed. He will say anything. You deleted his call. Because you were confused. My doctor says I am not." Laura looked toward Noah. "You searched my office and stole private recordings. I found letters you hid from me. Letters from a man who abandoned you. You spent the money he sent." The employees became quiet. Laura's expression hardened. "That money paid for your life. School. Medical care. Housing. Your father contributed nothing except guilt and paperwork." Noah stepped closer. "The trust statements will show where it went." "Yes," Laura said. "They will." Her confidence worried me. The account records arrived 2 days later. They showed that most of Owen's money had been withdrawn for Noah's benefit. Tuition. Therapy. Medical insurance. Clothing. Travel. The expenses looked legitimate. Laura had not simply taken the money for herself. That complicated the story. Then Miriam found the duplication. Noah's tuition had already been paid by the orchard's family education fund. His health insurance came through the company. Travel expenses described trips he had never taken. Several therapy invoices belonged to a clinic that had closed years earlier. Laura used real categories and false reimbursements. The money entered the orchard operating account after each withdrawal. She had not used it for luxury. She used it to cover business losses. The orchard truly was failing. Laura had hidden the severity for years. Poor harvests, debt, equipment costs, and a lost grocery contract had created a deficit exceeding $3 million. She used Noah's trust, delayed supplier payments, and transferred reserve funds to keep workers paid. When I confronted her in Miriam's office, Laura did not deny it. She sat across from us wearing the same dark green jacket she wore to Evelyn's funeral. Her hands rested calmly in her lap. I kept the orchard alive. With Noah's money. Money Owen owed him. It belonged to Noah. It paid for the home where he lived. And fake tuition? Accounting entries. Lies. Laura looked toward me. You think truth pays workers? You think transparency repairs hail damage? Every year, I found a way to keep the bank from taking this land. You thanked me for saving the family. I did not know how. You never asked. That was the arrangement. You walked the trees and told stories about Dad. I carried the numbers. The anger beneath her calmness finally appeared. Laura had spent decades being the person who remained. Whenever something broke, she repaired it quietly. Then she decided quiet repair gave her permission to choose what everyone else was allowed to know. Did you take the original expansion money? Laura's eyes moved toward the window. I moved it. Into your account? Into a temporary holding account. Why? She explained that Evelyn's bookkeeping errors had caused the bank to question several loan conditions. Laura feared the expansion financing would collapse. She moved money through Northline to conceal duplicate payments and create cleaner statements. Marcus returned the funds in smaller amounts. Then part of the money was used to cover construction overruns. It could not be returned before the audit. Owen discovered the scheme. He threatened to report it. Laura used his signed payment approvals to make him appear responsible. She believed fear would keep him silent until she repaired the accounts. She did not expect him to run. You framed him. I contained him. You let his son believe he abandoned him. He did abandon him. I did not force Owen onto an airplane. I did not stop him from returning. The statement was true. That did not make her innocent. You threatened him. I gave him a choice. A choice between your version and prison. He had signed the approvals. He had hidden the first payment. He was not some innocent boy. No. He was a frightened adult who made terrible choices. You used those choices to erase every attempt he made afterward. Laura leaned forward. And what would you have done, Dad? The bank was days from freezing the loan. Mom could barely remember which invoices she signed. Owen was drinking and threatening everyone. You were blaming the weather. Someone had to decide. There was the belief at the center of Laura's life. Someone had to decide. And because she was usually the person willing to decide, she believed the decision became hers. Miriam asked. Why declare Owen dead now? Laura looked at Noah. Because the sale is the only way to repay everything. The trust. The bank. The suppliers. The employees. If Owen returns, the buyer walks. His ownership creates litigation. The bank forecloses. Everyone loses. So you plan to declare him dead, control Noah's inherited share, complete the sale, and repair the accounts before Noah turned 18. Yes. Laura said it without shame. To her, the plan was not theft. It was an emergency bridge built over other people's rights. Noah stood. You were going to give me the money afterward? Yes. How much? Your full share. After deciding my father was dead. After ending 11 years of uncertainty. You were not ending uncertainty. You knew where he was calling from. You knew he was alive. Laura looked at him. I knew he could still hurt you. You hurt me every time you opened one of his letters. You were a child. I was still the person the letters belonged to. Noah left the room. Laura began to follow. Miriam stopped her. He asked not to speak with you privately. I am his guardian. For 21 more days. Laura sat down. For the first time in her life, a deadline was working against her. The flash drive contained enough evidence to force a formal investigation. Emails showed Laura directing Marcus to return payments through her private account. Spreadsheets showed the funds entering orchard operations. Draft messages showed her building a record against Owen before he disappeared. But the records also showed Owen had participated in hiding the first unauthorized payment. He had known Northline was being used to avoid bank scrutiny. He had threatened Laura but had not immediately reported the scheme. There would be no simple hero walking back through the orchard gate. The district attorney negotiated separate agreements. Owen returned and pleaded guilty to a reduced charge involving concealment of financial misconduct. He received probation, restitution obligations, and community service. His voluntary return and preserved evidence reduced the penalty. Laura faced more serious charges involving fraud, falsified records, misuse of trust funds, and attempted deception in the declaration proceeding. She avoided prison through a plea agreement requiring full restitution, sale of personal assets, and home confinement. She also lost control of the orchard and Noah's trust. Some people believed the outcome was too lenient. Others believed the law should have considered how many jobs she preserved. The court considered both. Consequences did not need to deny the good results of her actions to recognize the rights she violated. The developer withdrew. The orchard lender began foreclosure. Laura's warning appeared to be coming true. Employees prepared to lose their jobs. Suppliers demanded payment. For several days, guilt nearly pulled me back toward her version of events. Maybe signing the affidavit would have saved everything. Maybe truth had arrived only to destroy what her lies kept alive. Then Miriam said, "You are comparing reality with a fantasy version of the plan." Laura's sale depended on continued fraud, a false death declaration, hidden debt, and a 17-year-old never discovering what happened. That was not stability. It was an explosion with a delayed clock. Owen surprised us. He had spent 10 years working with agricultural cooperatives in Western Canada. He proposed dividing the orchard rather than selling it whole. The most indebted 60 acres would be sold to the county for a conservation and recreation project. The payment would reduce the bank balance. The packing operation would become a worker-owned cooperative. Several experienced employees invested retirement savings and secured a rural development loan. Owen transferred most of his remaining ownership into the cooperative as part of his restitution. I retained the farmhouse and 40 acres. Noah's ownership was restored under an independent trustee. Laura's share was partially sold to repay the trust and suppliers. The solution did not save the orchard as we knew it. Some trees were removed. The development plans ended. Several workers left. But the land did not disappear beneath luxury houses, and the remaining employees controlled the business they had helped sustain. Laura called it dismantling our family's legacy. Noah called it ending the idea that one family should control everyone's future. Both descriptions contain truth. Owen returned to the farmhouse for the first time in 11 years on a cold March morning. He arrived in a rented car and remained beside it for several minutes. I watched from the porch. Neither of us knew who should move first. Finally, he walked toward me. His eyes moved across the house, barn, and rows of trees. I thought it would look smaller. You got larger. I got older. That too. He stopped 3 feet away. I am sorry. For leaving? For giving you reasons to believe Laura. For not trusting that you could hear the entire truth. For staying away from Noah. For missing Natalie's funeral. I looked at my son. For years, I had imagined this moment ending in either an embrace or a refusal. Reality offered neither cleanly. I am sorry I accused you before asking you. I am sorry I let Laura speak for every call you supposedly made. I am sorry I told Noah you did not love him. And I am sorry that part of me preferred the story in which one child betrayed us because it meant the rest of us were innocent. Owen began crying. I did too. We did not hug immediately. We stood together until neither of us needed the other person to end the silence. Then Owen asked, "Can I come inside?" "Yes." The question mattered. So did the answer. Noah met Owen later that afternoon. He chose the orchard's old public picnic area because he did not want the farmhouse to make the meeting feel like a reunion. They sat at opposite ends of a wooden table. I remained nearby because Noah asked me to. Owen brought no gifts. He did not bring childhood photographs or letters proving how often he thought about Noah. He brought a notebook. Inside was a list of every year he had been absent and what he remembered about it. Noah did not open it. "Why did you send money instead of coming?" "Because money let me feel like a father without facing whether you wanted me. You were the adult." "I know. You were supposed to risk being unwanted." "Yes." "Did you love Mom?" "Yes." "Then why did she leave you?" "Because love did not make me honest. I hid the financial problem. I drank too much. I made promises and then explained why breaking them was temporary." Noah looked toward the trees. "Aunt Laura says you would have destroyed the orchard. She may be right about what I was becoming. That does not make what she did right." Noah finally opened the notebook. He read the first page. Then closed it. "I am not calling you Dad. I understand. I do not forgive you. I understand. I may want to see you again." Owen swallowed. "I would like that. That is not a promise." "I know." They met again 2 weeks later. Then again. Some meetings lasted an hour. One lasted 7 minutes. Owen never complained about the length. That was the first reliable thing he gave his son. Laura spent 6 months under home confinement in a townhouse she owned near the city. I visited after the first month. She opened the door wearing an electronic monitor around her ankle and the expression of someone determined not to appear diminished by it. "You came to see whether I am suffering?" "I came because you are my daughter." "Owen is your son too?" "Yes." "You chose him." "I chose not to declare him dead." "That is not the same thing." "It felt the same to you." Laura stepped aside. I entered. The townhouse was perfectly organized. Financial records filled the dining table. She was helping the cooperative untangle supplier accounts as part of her restitution agreement. "You are still working for the orchard?" "They need to understand the records." "Do they trust you?" "No." "Does that bother you?" "Yes." She poured coffee. Then she asked, "Do you know how many times I saved that place?" "No." "Neither do they." "You also created problems no one knew existed." "I made choices because everyone else froze." "Sometimes freezing is the moment before asking for help." "You never asked for help, Laura. You asked for obedience after you had already decided." She looked down at the coffee. "Mom understood." "Did she?" "She knew the accounts were wrong. She knew I was repairing them. She was ill. You used her confusion as permission, then used her memory to pressure me." Laura's eyes filled. "I was terrified. Of losing the loan. Of workers losing houses. Of you discovering Mom was not capable anymore. Of Owen exposing everything and then leaving me to repair it." "You were terrified. That explains why control felt necessary. It does not make every person you controlled responsible for comforting you now." She began crying. Laura rarely cried in front of anyone. When she did, the room usually reorganized itself around protecting her dignity. I remained seated. I did not tell her everything would be fine. "Does Noah hate me?" "He is angry." "That is not what I asked. I will not speak for him." Laura wiped her face. "You speak differently now." "I am trying to speak only for myself. It is irritating. I have been told." I visited every 2 weeks. Not because Laura deserved immediate forgiveness. Because accountability did not require abandonment. But I did not carry messages to Noah. I did not ask Owen to understand her pressure. I did not tell employees she had suffered enough. Love could remain present without becoming an appeal. Noah turned 18 26 days after the birthday dinner. The independent trustee gave him complete information about his accounts and ownership. He received a recovered balance of $87,000 after Laura sold personal investments to repay the trust. Noah stared at the statement. It should have been more. Yes. Some of it kept the orchard alive. Yes. Am I supposed to be grateful? No. Would people have lost jobs without it? Probably. So what am I supposed to feel? Whatever arrives. It does not need to become a verdict. Noah chose not to spend the money. He placed most of it in a managed account and used a small portion to attend college. He studied documentary filmmaking. Laura called the choice ironic. Noah said it made sense after growing up inside someone else's edited story. 2 years later, Noah produced a short documentary about the Orchard Cooperative. He interviewed workers, suppliers, Laura, Owen, and me. He did not center the financial scandal. He centered the question of who gets to decide what a family business owes the people who keep it alive. Laura agreed to appear after demanding editorial approval. Noah refused. She withdrew. Then, 3 days before filming ended, she changed her mind. During her interview, Noah asked, "Did you believe saving the orchard made the lies acceptable?" Laura answered, "I believe the result would eventually make everyone forgive the process." "Do you still believe that?" She looked toward the packing shed. "No. But part of me still wishes the result had been enough." Noah kept that answer in the film. It was not a confession designed to make her sympathetic. It was honest because it admitted change had not erased the desire to be justified. Owen's interview was shorter. Noah asked why he remained away after the immediate danger passed. Owen said, "Every year I stayed gone, returning required admitting a larger failure. Eventually shame became the place I lived." "Do you expect me to forgive you?" "No." "What do you expect?" "To answer when you ask." The documentary premiered at a regional film festival. Laura sat in the 4th row. Owen sat near the back. I sat beside neither of them. Noah had not assigned seats. After the screening, an audience member asked whether Reed orchards had survived. Noah answered. Part of the land survived. Most of the jobs survived. The family did not survive in its old form. I think that may be why the people did. No one applauded immediately. Then the applause began slowly. Laura looked at Owen across the auditorium. He nodded once. She did not return the gesture. Not yet. My daughter asked me to declare my son dead because death would have made the paperwork easier. It would also have made our family story cleaner. One responsible daughter. One dishonest son. One abandoned child. One orchard worth saving. The truth contained no clean roles. Owen helped conceal misconduct and then ran from the consequences. Laura protected the business and violated nearly everyone while doing it. I trusted the child whose behavior looked most like responsibility and condemned the child whose fear looked like guilt. Noah paid for decisions made before he was old enough to understand his own name on an account. The truth did not restore what we lost. It gave each person back the part of the story that belonged to them. The white farmhouse still stands. I live there alone, although alone no longer means abandoned. Owen visits on Tuesdays and works with the cooperative during harvest season. He rents a small house nearby. Noah visits when college permits. Laura comes less often. She still struggles to enter a place where she once controlled every key. When she visits, she calls first. That small courtesy took almost 3 years. Last autumn, the 4 of us shared a meal on the farmhouse porch. It was Noah's idea. He gave us 3 rules. No discussion of ownership. No one could describe what Evelyn would have wanted. And no person was permitted to explain another person's silence. Laura arrived first. Owen arrived last. When he walked onto the porch, Laura stood. For a moment, I thought she would leave. Instead, she said, "I am not ready to apologize for everything in one conversation." Owen nodded. I am not ready to forgive everything in one conversation. That seems fair. They sat at opposite sides of the table. Noah served dinner. Conversation remained careful until Owen complained that the cooperative's new cider was too sweet. Laura said his taste had always been unreliable. He reminded her she once entered an apple pie containing salt instead of sugar in a county competition. Laura laughed. The sound surprised all of us. It did not erase anything. That was why it was safe to enjoy. After dinner, Noah placed the old digital recorder on the table. The one he used at my birthday dinner. I am getting rid of this, he said. Laura looked at it. Why? Because I copied the file. That answer made Owen smile. Noah continued. I kept it because it proved I was right. But I do not want to carry proof every time we eat together. He removed the batteries and placed the recorder in a box for electronic recycling. Laura watched him. Does that mean you trust me? No. It means I trust myself to remember. Laura accepted the answer. That may have been the largest change of all. As the sun disappeared behind the orchard, Owen asked whether I still had the unsigned death affidavit. I told him it remained inside the red metal file box in my office. He asked why I kept it. For the same reason Noah kept the recorder. To prove you were right? No. To remember how close I came to making a permanent decision because the temporary story was easier. The next morning, I removed the affidavit from the box. I did not burn it. I did not frame it. I wrote one sentence across the signature line. A person does not become dead because the truth about them is inconvenient. Then I placed it inside the orchard archive beside the corrected financial records, Owen's restitution agreement, Laura's account statements, and Noah's trust documents. No single paper told the complete story. Together, they prevented any one person from owning it again. That is the inheritance we finally gave Noah. Not the orchard. Not the money. The right to know what happened without being required to protect the people who made it happen. And whenever someone asks whether our family healed, I tell them the truth. We did not return to what we were. What we were depended on silence, control, and one person speaking for everyone else. We became something less impressive and more honest. People who call before entering. People who ask before deciding. People who no longer confuse being necessary with being right. Some Sundays, all four of us still sit on the porch. Sometimes Laura and Owen argue. Sometimes Noah leaves early. Sometimes I say the wrong thing and am corrected by people I once believed I was supposed to guide. No one calls those evenings perfect. Perfection was part of our problem. We call them ours. And that is enough.